At the height of the Third Tiberium War, between the Brotherhood of Nod and the Global Defense Initiative, GDI launched an all-out assault on Nod's Temple Prime in Sarajevo. At the conclusion of the assault, the acting director of GDI ordered the destruction of the temple using the orbital ion cannon. The strike from the cannon wiped out the whole Nod base off the map, but also detonated liquid Tiberium beneath the temple, which caused a massive explosion showering much of Eastern Europe in Tiberium fallout. It seemed that at this moment, GDI had won the war. Unbeknownst to them, and much of the human race, an advanced species was lurking on the edge of the solar system, waiting for a sign from Earth. As it turned out, the liquid Tiberium explosion was that sign, and upon detecting it, these intergalactic visitors made their way towards Earth, intent on accomplishing the task for which they've been waiting many years for. They would become known to the humans of Earth as the Scrin. Not much is actually known about the Scrin, and much of the information that we do know comes from reports and eyewitness accounts from GDI and Nod sources, as well as a few civilian ones, at least in regards to the Scrin's presence on Earth. Many would assume that the year 2047, during the Third Tiberium War, to be the first sighting and interaction between humans and the alien invaders. However, the first sightings actually go many years back. During the later stages of the First Tiberium War in the late 1990s, during a GDI assault on one of Kane's temples of Nod in Cairo, Egypt, Commander Nick Seymour Parker, better known by his codename Havoc, discovered what looked to be a crashed aircraft of alien origin amongst the Egyptian ruins. The exterior of the ship looks similar to other Scrin ships, especially in the purple and blue colors painted on it. The interior of the ship is the same. Havoc was able to recover a prototype energy weapon called the Black Widow Volt auto rifle inside of it. The weapon itself did not appear to be of alien origin like the ship, but it may have been developed by Nod scientists based off data gathered from the UFO. Another crashed UFO was discovered during the Second Tiberium War. GDI scientists who were able to capture it didn't think that it was made by humans. Kane, leader of the Brotherhood of Nod, would describe it as an alien ship. However, he also mentions that it was constructed during the First Tiberium War. This indicates that the ship was in fact man-made, but was most likely built using data from the Tacitus, an ancient alien artifact which holds vast advanced knowledge. Or possibly even from data gathered from the small UFO in Egypt. This ship seemed to be the Brotherhood's attempt at making an aircraft to combat GDI's own, but they must not have had the technology or the industrial capabilities to get it to fully function. The only other information we have available about the Scrin and their origins comes from messages from the Scrin warp link, as part of the intelligence database. According to one message received at the beginning of the Scrin's arrival on Earth, all escort, combat, transport, construction, and harvesting units functioning normally after arrival on planet's surface. No ill effects reported from 9,210 cycles in stasis, and 1,959 cycles spent in sublight journey from I-Core Hub. Primary base established near mature I-Core deposits using nano-assemblers. Cycles seem to be the Scrin's format of measuring time. The Scrin harvesting force took 1,959 cycles traveling to the solar system, and another 9,210 cycles waiting or hibernating in stasis. So the Scrin have been in the solar system for a long time, perhaps even longer than humans have been on Earth. But there is no for sure way to tell, as one cycle does not necessarily equal 1 month, or 1 year in regards to human time measurement. I-Core Hub is the closest piece of information we have to knowing where the Scrin came from. The harvesting fleet definitely came from this hub, according to the database entry. But what exactly is it? It could be a planet, perhaps the Scrin's home world, or a planet that is at least controlled by the Scrin. Or it could also be a large artificial construct floating in space. Either way, the hub seems to be the most important place for the Scrin, as it seems to be where all harvested Tiberium, or I-Core as the Scrin call it, is transported to. How the Scrin transport such Tiberium is done through what are known as threshold towers, but more on those later. In addition, a hub implies that it is linked to other planets throughout the galaxy, which, if true, mean that the Scrin are an interstellar civilization, possibly having a vast empire stretching across multiple systems and planets. Overall, the conclusions we can draw from this information are that the Scrin are a highly advanced alien civilization that is widespread across the galaxy. The harvesting force that invaded Earth in the year 2047 have been in the solar system for years and monitoring Tiberium growth on the planet, whether from afar beyond the orbit of Neptune or through small scout ships sent to Earth, and that this force was originally from a place called Icor Hub. The reason for the Scrin's interest in Earth is, of course, Tiberium. If GDI thought the Brotherhood were fanatical about Tiberium, they quickly realized that the Scrin are completely addicted to it. Even Kane himself described them as being a cult of addiction in the guise of a species. There is even a theory by some scientists that the Scrin were the ones responsible for the appearance of Tiberium on Earth. They seed planets using Tiberium-infused meteorites, and the Tiberium is used as a means of terraforming a planet in order to create an environment suitable for the aliens themselves. When the Scrin force came to Earth, they specifically landed in regions of high Tiberium concentration. These regions were known as red zones, zones that are completely taken over by Tiberium, and that no carbon-based life is capable of living in. But the Scrin are not only capable of living in such areas, but thriving in them. They even have structures that can enhance the growth of Tiberium fields, such as the growth accelerator and growth stimulator. Another Tiberium-related structure is the relay node. During the Third Tiberium War, this large structure was built at Ground Zero. Ground Zero being the spot where the source of Tiberium on Earth was first discovered. This node controlled the entire alien force. More specifically, it emitted Tiberium-based radiation at a great distance. This gave Scrin forces a continuous flow of power, or energy, in order to conduct both military, harvesting, and construction operations all over the world. When the relay node was eventually destroyed, this caused all the Scrin forces to fall, or shut down upon its destruction. Of course, the whole purpose of the Scrin coming to Earth was the harvesting of Tiberium. Part of those harvesting efforts was to create massive threshold towers in the red zones. When completed, these towers would act as portals, and be able to transport a large amount of Tiberium to Icor Hub. But they can also transport Scrin units as well, possibly allowing for a much larger invasion force to come through. They may even be able to transport humans, though this has never been confirmed. The Scrin attempted to build 19 of these towers, but 18 were destroyed during construction. The 19th one, known as Threshold 19, was the only one that was fully completed, and therefore impervious to all attacks. According to the Scrin warp link, Threshold Tower construction is the first stage of planetary Icor extraction. Thresholds are capable of extracting all Icor within a large radius. Icor will be processed and transferred to Hub. Connection with Hub takes the form of an interstellar gateway capable of instantaneous matter transmission. Threshold assemblies and signal transmitters will partially phase out once construction is complete. Phasing will completely protect all Threshold structures and machinery against any form of geological upheaval, severe weather phenomena, cometary impact, or use of conventional, nuclear, Icor, or other forms of weaponry. The only time the tower itself was ever used was at the end of the Third Tiberium War, when the remaining Scrin forces used it to evacuate to Icor Hub. Since then, the tower has been in an inactive state. Similar to the Scrin's origins, most of what is known about their organizational structure is limited. They seem to be similar to the Brotherhood in that they are ruled by a supreme leader, known as the Overlord. Supervisors are in charge of overseeing harvesting operations on planets. They receive and relay orders from the Overlord to a lower rank of Scrin, known as the Foremen. The Foremen are in charge of directly coordinating and organizing the harvesting of Tiberium at their assigned planetary location. Their rank seems to be similar to that of a commander giving direct orders to their forces on the battlefield. Foremen also don't seem to have any unique names associated with them. Instead, they only have numbers, such as Foreman 371, responsible for leading harvesting efforts on Earth in 2047. The Scrin also have a couple of divisions within their overall organizational structure. The first one is called the Cult of Reaper. This sub-faction specifically has a focus on purging any planets of life forms that are perceived as a threat to the Scrin. But the 17th sect of this cult, also known as Reaper 17, is considered the most cruel and violent, even amongst its fellow Scrin. The second is known as the Traveler sect. Unlike the cult of Reaper, who focus on brute force to destroy all who oppose it, Traveler focuses on subterfuge and infiltration in order to destabilize and enslave a rival species to the Scrin. Traveler 59 is the newest cell within this sect, and Earth would be its proving ground. The Scrin military doctrine is primarily centered around establishing air superiority over the battlefield. Scrin aircraft are the most advanced ever seen on Earth, and are not limited by the downsides of human aircraft such as fuel and ammunition. The most powerful aircraft being the Mothership, which is capable of destroying an entire city with its primary weapon, the Catalyst Cannon. The Scrin employ technology that is all around superior to that of both GDI and Nod. Most of their weapons are energy-based with almost no projectile weapons, with the exception of Tiberium shards launched by a unit such as the Ravager. They also have teleportation technology, which they mostly use to warp in units from space or elsewhere on Earth to the battlefield, through the use of certain structures. One of their most powerful units, called the Mastermind, is even capable of teleporting itself and other Scrin units across the battlefield. They also have access to force field technology that allow the Scrin to give their most powerful vehicles, such as ships and tripods, an extra layer of protection against both ballistic and energy-based attacks. Not much is known about what exactly many of the Scrin's vehicles or infantry units are even made of. They have an insectoid appearance, and seem to be composed of a combination of biological and mechanical materials, as well as the ability to naturally absorb Tiberium particles, which allow some Scrin units to heal any damage that they've received in Tiberium fields. And of course, the most powerful weapon in the Scrin arsenal is the Rift Generator. According to the GDI archives, the Rift Generator makes the science behind our own ion cannon look downright primitive. It appears to function by opening a portal at the flashpoint, and ejecting anything that's caught in the resulting field into deep space. Some of our more robust structures have been able to hold against such an attack, but the Rift Generator's destructive capabilities are on par with the GDI ion cannon and the Nod nuclear missiles. As previously mentioned, the Scrin would be drawn to Earth due to the liquid Tiberium explosion caused by GDI's ion cannon at Temple Prime. The reason for this was because the Scrin force had believed that this was a sign that Earth was sufficiently covered in Tiberium, making it ready for harvesting. However, when the Scrin ships were on their final approach to land on the planet, GDI activated its ion cannon defense network in an attempt to prevent the alien ships from landing. This attempt failed, as it took the 6 large alien ships and turned them into many smaller ships, most of which landed in the Earth's red zones. This attack caught the Scrin completely off guard, as they had not expected such stiff resistance coming from the humans of Earth, who they believed were extinct from the Tiberium on the planet. They were also surprised that the ichor deposits were not as mature or fully developed as they were expecting. This led them to hypothesize that the detonation of liquid Tiberium was premature. Regardless of these unexpected developments, the supervisor ordered Foreman 371, the Scrin commander in charge of the harvesting force, to target high population centers such as London and Munich, in order to distract GDI and Nod forces from their primary objective of constructing the relay node and threshold towers. The diversion tactics initially worked, and the Scrin were able to establish the relay node and continue work on building the thresholds. The Scrin Overlord, however, wanted more information about the premature detonation of liquid Tiberium, and thus ordered Foreman 371 to gather as much information as possible. This would ultimately lead the Scrin to finding out that the Brotherhood's leader, Kane, was the architect of this plan to lure the Scrin to Earth.
GDI has always viewed the Tacitus as a warning about the visitors. I saw it as an opportunity to invite a superior race to Earth, a race with great knowledge about Tiberium. According to the Tacitus, a liquid Tiberium explosion would alert the visitors' scout ships. But all of my experiments with liquid T failed to produce the necessary blast yield.
This being already exists in the data core.
Kane became of great interest to the Overlord, who desired even more information on him. However, by now, the distraction tactics of the Scrin forces were no longer working, as both GDI and Nod forces had reorganized and regrouped and were now on the counter-offensive. GDI found great success against the Scrin using their sonic weaponry, such as the sonic emitters. So did Nod with the use of their catalyst missiles. These weapons are highly effective against Tiberium itself, and since the Scrin are Tiberium-based life, it makes sense that these weapons would have such a major impact on them. The situation for the Scrin became so dire that all efforts would be focused on completing at least one of the Threshold Towers in order to escape Earth and return back to Icor Hub. However, the Supervisor, on behalf of the Overlord, wanted even more information on Kane, as at this point, they had deemed the gathering of this information worth sacrificing the entire harvesting operation. Thankfully for Foreman 371, the AI on its mothership ignored these new orders and continued focusing on completing the thresholds. Only one threshold, number 19, was able to be completed and invulnerable to attacks. The Foreman and its mothership AI was able to retreat back to Icor Hub through the tower. The rest of the Scrin force would be destroyed once the relay node was successfully taken out by GDI. Although Foreman 371 was able to escape death on Earth, the Scrin's Supervisor and Overlord were not as pleased about this. As far as they were concerned, Foreman 371 had ignored orders to gather more information on Kane, which the Overlord greatly desired. And with the completion of Threshold 19, the Scrin now had a permanent connection to Earth, allowing them to return to the planet whenever they wanted. The Overlord would order a full invasion force to be assembled and be ready to be sent back to Earth. In the year 2052, Nod would successfully raid the Rocky Mountains complex in order to retrieve the Tacitus from GDI. Due to how unstable the device had now become after years of experimentation on it, Kane would merge it with an advanced AI named Legion. This allowed the AI to pick up and translate a message from the Scrin, saying that Threshold 19 was once again active, and that an invasion of Earth was imminent. It is unknown whether GDI and Nod will be ready for a second invasion, but if just a small force of Scrin miners could cause widespread destruction across the planet, then a full military invasion force would not only be devastating, but fully capable of wiping out the entire human race. Until then, both GDI and Nod will have to make do with what preparations they can, and hope that it will be enough to hold back the wrath of the Scrin.